On the phone with me is Billy Hinsche, one of the members of Dino, Desi and Billy. I promised all you Beach Boys fans out there a little treat. Well, Billy has more than a passing connection with the Beach Boys, and I'd like to say, Billy, it's an honor and a privilege to talk to you. I've been a Beach Boy fan forever, seems like, but and I know you've got a big connection with them. For the folks who aren't familiar with the name Billy Hinsche, give us a little introduction.
Well, let's see. I was born in Manila, Philippines. I have one sister, Annie. And after, I'd say in the early 50s, my family moved to Los Angeles. And that's where we set up shop. And went to school, met a couple of guys. We started a group. We named it Dino, Desi, and Billy, after our own names. Dino being Dean Martin's son, and Desi being Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball's son, and myself. And we went on to have a pretty good run through the mid-'60s to the end of the '60s, and along the way, we opened up for the Beach Boys and Sam the Sham and Paul Revere and the Raiders. My sister ended up marrying Carl Wilson, and I subsequently became a member of the Beach Boys touring and recording band for many, many years, and that's the short version.
Well, you almost took care of all my questions there.
Sorry.
Well, that's okay.
Well, nice talking with you, and we'll see you next time.
We can probably expand on some of that stuff. Now, you said you went to school, and is that how you got hooked up with Dino and Desi?
Yeah, people say, how did the group get started? And, back when we were popular, people didn't know what the story was, so writers would make things up, such as, Billy's father was in real estate, and he sold Dean and Lucy their homes in Beverly Hills, and that wasn't true. Or we met on the Little League field. Well, that's sort of true. I mean, we Dino and I played Little League, and Desi did too, but we didn't meet there. We met at grammar school, basically.
Okay.
Covered Beverly Hills Catholic.
Okay. Well, I had heard that real estate story, and
oh, yeah, so that's a good one. I mean, but when you're a writer and you've got to come up with something, somebody should have called us, gotten the real story.
Well, you mentioned you toured as an opening act for the Beach Boys. Is that when you first met them?
Yes. We first met at the Hollywood Bowl July 3rd, 1965, as part of a summer spectacular show with a lot of other amazing groups like Sonny and Cher and Righteous Brothers, the Kinks, the Byrds, Sir Douglas. And so then they liked us so much, the Beach Boys did, that it was their show. They headlined it.
No.
They were the biggest group around in '65, American group, for sure. And we went on the road with them.
And you were how old at this time?
'65, I was 14.
Wow. I couldn't imagine doing something like that at 14.
Were slightly younger than me, but I was the older statesman of the group.
Oh, wow.
I was the Henry Kissinger, if you will.
Well, now, I got some of this from Wikipedia, so I don't know how accurate this is, but the Dino, Desi, and Billy days kind of came to an end when Desi joined his sister and his mother on the Here's Lucy show. And then you also wanted to start college, too. That's kind of about the size of it. I mean, we had a 4-year run with our record company Reprise, and our contract was up. I don't think they renewed it, and Desi was getting interested in acting, and Dino wanted to do all kinds of things, including play tennis and race cars, and and I was offered a gig with the Beach Boys, but I turned it down at the time because I did have my own group. At the time, I wanted to join, but my folks wanted me to finish my education, so I ended up going to UCLA, getting accepted, and finishing college at UCLA. And so, yeah, I guess that story is, kind of... For the most part, true.
Yeah.
Well, now, I know Dino has passed on now. What's Desi doing nowadays?
He does productions at a theater that he and his wife own in Boulder City, Nevada. It's a beautiful, historic theater that they renovated. It was a movie theater, but they do live productions now, such as They always do the Nutcracker at Christmas time, and they have different musical productions or dance productions, and sometimes a rock and roll show, and that's what he does. And he and his sister administer the estate, the parents' estate, the merchandise, and all that stuff.
Right.
But he pretty much lives a quiet life.
Now, you released a DVD a few months back, a behind-the-scenes look at the Beach Boys on their 1974 tour, and you mentioned you're being a film student at UCLA. And I know you said you wanted to join the Beach Boys in the beginning. Was film something you always wanted to get into anyway?
Well, in a sense, I grew up with it, and so far as, I don't know whether it was just our family. I know a couple of other families of the day that had, folks made home movies. I don't know, we had a projector, a 16-millimeter projector and an 8-millimeter, and we had a screen that we'd take out and set up in the living room and open it up, and, we'd watch home movies, no sound even.
Right.
Fun. I don't know, I think that was a 50s kind of a phenomenon where families had some leisure time, and that was just a fun thing to do. So I already was, I had a taste of it just with my parents, having home movies of the family going, the usual stuff, birthdays, going to Disneyland, stuff.
Yeah.
So by the time I hit college, I had to declare a major, and the music division, though I took a bunch of classes, I wasn't quite prepared to declare music as my major. It was a bit beyond what my needs were, but the film and TV department really was the perfect fit for me. I'd already had experience in the recording studio, and so being in the TV studio, having done all these shows like, Ed Sullivan, Shindig, Shivery, Hullabaloo, we did all of them.
Right.
I felt very at home. It wasn't like I was starting from scratch. Oh, gee, wow, look at this, a TV studio. I'd already been there.
Yeah.
Of course, the recording studio was, all a TV studio was a recording studio with cameras and lights. So it all felt very comfortable to me. So that's why I made that choice. And yes, I very cleverly convinced the professors to let me do a lot of my projects on the road so that I could tour with the Beach Boys, even though I wasn't touring full-time or was an official member, really. I was still touring with them during my college years. So I did documentaries on the group to fulfill class obligations, and lo and behold, all these years later, I like to say it only took me 30 years, but I'm finally editing these things and making them available to the fans and the public. And very well received.
Well, now, you say you toured part-time. When was that 74 tour when you first became like a full-time member?
I toured earlier. I did the live album. I'm all over that 1972, 73 live album that they did. So, when I say I became an official member in 74, I mean to say I was put on retainer. The band was put on retainer to, ensure that we were available 24/7 year-round. Whereas before, I went out when I could. It worked around my school schedule.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that concert album there that they did, that's one of my favorite ones.
Well, thank you. I'm looking at the gold album of it sitting here on my wall above my desk. It's my first gold album, and I think it's my most meaningful one.
Well, speaking of being on the road, are there any family-friendly stories you could pass along from some of your touring days?
Oh, gosh. Well, people often ask me, what's your favorite show or your most memorable show? And I'm doing a piece right now on Carl Wilson that I've been working on for, about 3 years. And as part of it, I'm bringing in old photos and old footage and all, family photos. But the other day I was importing some photos that I took from the 1984 concert on the Mall in Washington, D.C., July 4, where we had 500,000 people, and Ringo Starr was our guest, along with a bunch of other great acts, such as Three Dog Night and Julio Iglesias. But that
that was quite a day. That was probably one of the bigger crowds that I'd ever played in front of.
I think they showed it on HBO, did they not?
I think that they might have, but if it were, yes, I believe that they did, but that was a long time ago. I don't think it's aired in many years.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time. I remember Ringo behind the drum set there. Well, now I know the first time I ever saw the Beach Boys in concert was here in Huntsville back in 1977, and for the most part, you were, in the band, did some background vocals, although they did bring you out front to sing lead on Sail on Sailor.
How about that?
Yeah, that's the first introduction I had to Billy Hinsche.
Oh, yeah, well, my role was that of a supporting musician, and I sang vocals. In fact, when I came into the group on a more permanent basis, I was singing all of Brian's parts.
Right.
The high falsetto parts for Surfing USA, Fun, 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 Little Deuce Coupe, everything that, all the parts that Brian had sung, that they were given to me.
Yeah. And they had to have somebody because he was not there at every show.
No, and Bruce had left the group. Bruce was responsible for a lot of those parts, and he was no longer on stage with us, and so I got to sing Brian's parts, and since Blondie Chaplin was also no longer with the group, who sang Sailor originally on the Holland album,
right,
I inherited his lead. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, now you mentioned your other connection with the band, your sister Annie having married Carl Wilson.
Yeah.
That brings us to the project that you're working on right now, a 2-DVD set called Carl Wilson Here and Now. It's coming out. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, as I touched on a minute ago, I've been working on it, gathering interviews over the last 3 years, maybe even looking at 4 years now. It's got over 40 interviews with family members, sister-in-laws, Marilyn and Carol, who were married to Brian and Dennis, respectively. I've got Jonah and Justin Wilson, Carl's sons. And don't tell anybody, but I'm working on one with Brian Wilson.
Oh.
Or maybe you've heard of Brian.
Well, I was wondering when you were going to get around to him. So.
But a lot of his contemporaries from other groups, such as Phil Fang Volk from the Raiders, Paul Revere and the Raiders, Nick Fortuna from the Buckinghams, Jerry Beckley from the group America, Walt Perazzator from the group Chicago, all kinds of guys on the crew that don't often get to get on camera talking about Carl in this way. And, we got fans, we got friends, we got all kinds of people telling the viewer about Carl. And I'm trying to do it with the idea of, for the younger people who may not know who Carl was, to give them a really well-rounded impression of him.
Mm-hmm.
There are all kinds of documentaries on the Beach Boys in general, and they tend to, focus on Brian and his amazing life and career and his contribution to music. And Dennis, there have been, there's a lot of interest in Dennis as well. But I wanted to do something for Carl.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a lot of amazing footage, as I mentioned, concert vintage footage and photos, family photos that no one's ever seen before. It's really strong. I'm almost done with it. It's right on target for the release date in on or about the first week of May, which is right around the corner. And folks can see the trailers. I did 2 different trailers, and you can watch them. If you go to my website, there are a couple of links to YouTube. And my website's real easy to find. Just Google my name, and if you come close to spelling my last name correctly, you'll find me. It's easy to find. But the correct spelling of my last name is Hinsche. Hinsche.
Okay.
Don't put that S in, or they. Anyway, my name is often misspelled. So.
All right, BillyHinsche.com.
Yeah, BillyHinsche.com, and you're welcome to view those trailers, and you get a better sense of what this thing is all about.
Yeah. Well, now, from what all I've read, when Brian Wilson decided to stop going on the road, it was Carl who stepped up and became the leader of the group on the road. Anyway, and it sounds like he was pretty much the glue that held the Beach Boys together. I mean, there for a time they were almost known more for their internal fighting than the music they were putting out.
Yeah, true that. Carl was I have a chapter in the movie called, well, I don't want to give everything, but we address that.
Yeah.
That Carl was the leader and the peacemaker of the group. And regrettably, when we lost Carl, when he died in '98, the group, well, how do I say it, fell apart, started squabbling, or, you know what I mean? It wasn't the same.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same. To this day, it's not the same.
Well, and I was going to mention that since he passed away, the Beach Boys have splintered into different groups. I mean, Mike Love and Bruce Johnston, who you mentioned a while ago, still tour as the Beach Boys. I saw them back on Memorial Day in Atlanta, and they're coming here to Huntsville on May 13th, too.
Oh?
And then, of course, Brian has been doing quite well with his solo career, and Alan Jardine's out with a solo album, too. Of course, I say solo album. He's got a lot of special guests on it, but...
You know, I'm Alan's musical director on the road. We just got back from a little run there in Japan. Fortunately, we got out before all the tragedy occurred, and, you know, we feel terrible about all of that. The Beach Boys came together for a release of a two-sided disc that has, you know, devoted to helping raise money for the benefit of the Japanese people.
Yeah, I saw that on the internet the other day. Do you tour with the other guys?
You know, I like to say I've toured with the Beach Boys, with the Brian Wilson Band, with the Al Jardine Band, and the Carl Wilson Band. I've been very fortunate to have been invited to play in all of those groups. So I think I'm the only one of the musicians that can say that.
You've also done some stuff with Dean Torrance of Jan and Dean, too.
I have. Dean is a good buddy, and we miss Jan. He was a great guy. Yeah, I've worked with them, worked side by side with them too.
Man, you're all over the place. And speaking of the Beach Boys, of course, this is a big year. It's their 50th anniversary, and I read where there's a big package coming out with sessions from that famous unreleased Smile album. But back to the DVDs here. I mentioned the 74 tour. You also have a DVD about Dennis Wilson.
Yeah, that's where my career in film making reemerged, and because I didn't really go to college with the anticipation of going into the film or TV industry. I had already kind of done that already with Desi. What I just wanted to accomplish, having graduated from a fine university, UCLA. And so I sort of put all my filmmaking and TV stuff aside until now. And now, relatively speaking, a few years ago, I dedicated a movie to Dennis called Dennis Wilson Forever, which was the title of maybe his best-known composition.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the beginning of my documentary style, with keeping with one person in mind. I had done other documentaries about being on the road. One was called Know the Road, which was kind of a tongue-in-cheek look at how to travel rock and roll style on the road. But anyway, I started with Dennis doing all these interviews with people. Once again, it took me years to gather up all the interviews I needed because, logistically speaking, it's difficult to coordinate sometimes with people. And so I got interviews where I could, and then Sony UK picked it up, and they're distributing it for me in the UK and certain parts of the world. And then came 1974, and now Carl Wilson Here and Now. And I've already got another project in mind, and I could tell you about it right now. You'll get the world exclusive.
Sure. I was going to ask you what your next project might be. I thought maybe it was the Brian Wilson thing, but
Oh, it's going to be something that's a lot easier than this Carl Wilson piece because it's just already done. In a way, it's a little bit like Know the Road because Know the Road was shot during a tour. It seems I make the same movie every 10 years or so. Know the Road was shot in one era, and then 1974 obviously was shot in the 70s. But this one is going to be, I call it 24 Hours. And 24 Hours was shot on a tour of a Beach Boy tour in 1991. And why I chose to name it 24 Hours is because it's the whole day. We go to 4 different cities in one day. Now, that's a big day. Anybody's book.
yeah.
And we start in Kansas City. We go to Sedalia for a show. We fly to Memphis for a second show, and then on to Boston to check in. So it's a whole entire day of being on the road.
Wow.
And guess who the Beach Boys opened for a particular group. They didn't often open for anybody in their career, but this one of the few times we opened for a little group named Alabama.
Ah. Okay.
And I became buddies with Jeff Cook on that tour. And there's a little brief appearance by Jeff in this movie I'm calling 24 Hours.
In addition to film editing and touring, you also teach online guitar lessons. How's that work?
Can you believe it? Yeah, I just started experimenting with that, and it's just brand new, and we're going to see how it flies. I've been teaching guitar and piano for a number of years. Gosh, over 10 years now. Going back to a video I didn't shoot it, but I participated in it. It was like it is an educational video for homespun tapes called Play Songs of the Beach Boys. And I think you can't get it anymore. It's out of print, unavailable. But at the time, it was my first foray into, I guess you could say, the educational aspect of teaching people how to play songs of the Beach Boys on piano. So that was fun. I've been teaching ever since.
So they can go to your website for any of this then?
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. There's photos that folks will enjoy from over the years and stories that I've written about. All kinds of things, including work we did for the Carl Wilson Foundation, which was set up in about 1999 after Carl died. And we were having a golf event later on in the year. And, yeah, all kinds of stuff. I invite all of them to go and take a look.
Well, I appreciate you taking this time out to talk with me. Like I say, it was a real treat. And I think my wife and kids will tell anybody I'm probably the biggest Beach Boy fan in North Alabama, at least. Now I'm a big Billy Hinsche fan, too.
Well, that's very kind of you, and perhaps we can talk again sometime.
Once more, how can we get the Carl Wilson DVD?
Please visit my website at www.billyhinsche.com.
All righty. Once again, thanks a lot.
Okay, Tim.
All right.
Bye-bye.
That was Billy Hinsche. His website again is billyhinsche.com. That's Billy, HINSCHE.com.